So to be able to be hosting this is really, really special for me. Thank you so much, Joe Bratcher. Everyone, this is Joe here in the corner. He owns a store. He is keeping poetry alive in Austin in a big way. Thank you so much, Joe. Everybody, please buy books and support the book. So we just made our 1 year mark a few days ago, so it's good news from that end. And also we just got a new order from spdbooks.com today, so come in and see me on Tuesday and buy some books from me. All right, so this is the first year showcase for all of the first year MFA students in the New Writers Project, which is the other MFA project at UT. No, that's not true. It's the English department's MFA program, which I just finished, and I'm really happy to be a part of, like I said. So we're not going to hear from all of the students because some of them are out of town, seeing like weddings from family members and things like that. So we have 4 really special readers for you tonight. First is Adam Ortman, who grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and then moved for college to Indiana. Then lived in Tacoma, Washington, then Portland, then Cambridge, then St. Johnbury, and now here. And he got another master's somewhere along the way. And his work is featured at a wildly popular and legendary reading at Malvern Books.
You were supposed to read that afterwards. So I'm going to read, I write fiction, so I'm going to read a whole story, and it's only 3 pages long. And actually I didn't write the first sentence. My wife wrote the first sentence, because we wrote this. Well, she gave me the first sentence of this story, and I gave her the first sentence of a different story, and we wrote it like a few years ago. But it's fun to read aloud, so I'm going to bring it back. And thanks, Taylor. It's awesome. It's called The Wig Store. After a few months of working at the wig store, we began to sneak them home at night. The walls of the store were laden, and the windows full of heads, but the best wigs were kept in back. For these, we had books of sample locks, which the customers could stroke with 2 or 3 fingers. The free hands of some would creep to their napes as they paged among the locks, and their eyes would unfocus and float to futures with this or that strand of hair light upon their shoulders. Who could fail to collapse for such people? We observed our customers as they strode into the store with sass or a prognosis. We watched as they tapped a finger to their lips and gazed into the eyeless eyes of mannequins. We watched as they chose a head. Then, precious people in mirrors, they would stare into their own eyes and tilt their chins at all angles before calling us over to judge. Ooh, we would coo in appraisal. The customers would consider their hardships at length before offering them aloud to us or to each other. In our inexperience, we would muster our own burdens, but in time we dropped these and only met their eyes in the mirror, nodding, absorbing their unlikely challenges as other customers spoke up to display their own fresh incisions with voices built from blood. When they strode back out to their battles, wig adorned, we recalled how they had moved. We praised their practical jackets and regal scarves and brought similar clothing to work with us in a bag, which we would don before leaving at night, before donning, too, the wigs. Departing in the walks and clothes of customers, our heads holding wigs, we would not go immediately home. Let's go to our favorite joint, we would say, and walk to a place we would know for the first time when it appeared. Ralph is how we would greet the man at the door, and Jerry is what we would call to the bartender, and neither Ralph nor Jerry would mind that we had their names wrong because of our bright and generous bangs. We would tell our stories, the stories we had received from customers, to parties of men and women through the night. We had absorbed a dense and fascinating love, and we were happy to unfurl it, though our speeches began on whims, this or that strand which had fallen to us from the lips of a customer. We soon found ourselves declaring high mysteries. People begged for us. They would place cocktails before us. The drinks were our favorites, so long as they were somebody's favorites, and they would covet our attention. Just as the best of our customers were patient and concerned listeners, we were patient and concerned listeners, commiserating over the misfortunes and the triumphs of strangers. The Whigs kept our faces honest and steady, no matter how outlandish the misfortunes or unlikely the triumphs. The Whigs absolved our private burdens and gave us stunning tales of heartache and royal luck, which we would recount at great length when the others were silent. Soon we went out under the assumption that our fellow barflies were Whig thieves sharing our fun, that Ralph was secretly wigged, that Jerry's sheer dome was makeup magic, that the men flexing violence and the women flexing violence, and the other men and women too sponge-eyed to remember anything wrong, were each playing as customers of their own. And so we hardly thought of blame when our drinks were knocked against the wall or our bodies groped. Good show is the gist of what we would say to ourselves as we stumbled back toward home in the short lights. Weeks and weeks, and we'd get so good at it we'd have a hard time reading our fatigue, our hunger, our oldest misgivings. We would float beneath lamps in the streets and only slipped from our wigs when we were in our beds. We would not consider a mirror until morning, when our same and sticky faces hung like portraits we could abandon on the wall. As we snuck through the rooms of our homes, photographs in drawers, or food in drawers, or telephones arch-backed and quiet in drawers, we would sometimes stand and tap our fingers to our lips. We would be shocked by all of the things we did not need. Back in the wig store, our customers tipped along with measured interest, or approached us in bursts of okayness, or approximated dignity before the mirrors we provided. If I hadn't put it on you myself, I'd bet it had always been there, we would say. You look like you must have looked before, we would say. But is he strong enough to shrug at a redhead, we would ask? And we would take them in, whether they were indulging or startled, whether their eyes crept to the floor or they held the wig in place like a headache when they spoke, whether the wet on their faces was medicinal or cosmetic, illness or appetite, we took them in for the night. Soon we had charmed the crowds at our favorite places into sweetness. We regaled them with their own best stories and loosened the tense skin of their faces until whole groups of us would end up at some hill in the city or its outskirts, a place with a view down or up, stars or building lights, or at least the plotted lights of aircraft, giving us a grand sense as we told all our stories, each other's stories, hilarious and distant and tender, back to each other, parsing our names in the process, whole parties of us, crowds, populations. And when we returned home at last, we would find strangers already camped in our bedclothes, lisping over our losses in their sleep. And so rather than wake them, we would return to the city, where the dawn was like soap in the trees, and we would find a new favorite place and people once again, before it was time to return to the wig store, that jewel in the heart of the city.